Come along, Doctor. You're supposed to be in the sick bay.
Am I? Don't you mean the infirmary?
No, I do not mean the infirmary. I mean the sick bay. You're not fit yet.
Not fit. I'm the doctor.
No, Doctor. I'm the doctor, and I say that you're not fit.
You may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor. The definite article, you might say.
Look here, Doctor. You're not fit.
Not fit. Not fit. Of course I'm fit. All systems go.
Say. Look.
From Krypton Radio and the creators of the Hangin web show, it's the legend of the Traveling Tardis. Look inside and behind the scenes at some of the most enduring and beloved science fiction worlds. Step inside the doors to a world that is bigger, brighter, and beyond imagination. And now, join your host, Christian Basel, as you become a part of the legend of the Traveling Tardis.
And hello, fellow Whovians out there in iHeartWorld, in iTunes World, in Spotify, wherever you're listening to us on Krypton Radio. Welcome again to another episode of the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show, where you become part of the legend. I've got some special guests going on today, but before I introduce them, we just want to let you know that we are celebrating a particular doctor's birthday, which is going to be taking place very soon, and that's actually part of the Who Knew News coming up over here. Again, my name is Christian Basel, and welcome to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. But before we begin, let's get to those guests. First of all, we have guests returning back. We have Miss Melanie Dean, who's actually going to be joining me at a convention this weekend. Hello, Melanie.
Hello, Christian. Hello, everyone.
Artiste from the pieces of Melee. Yeah. I can't say that.
Melee, like a style of fighting that's frantic and crazy. Yes, there you go. That's me.
And also returning, we have our own favorite doctor. We know him better on YouTube as Dr. Freedom, but some of you may know him as Briar Burress. Brian, how you doing there, my friend? Welcome back.
Oh, hanging in there. How about yourself?
Not bad. Another panelist who is new to our little insane asylum over here. I have the husband of Heather Seaman Daly, who was on the show recently. I have Mr. Chris Daly of Wibbly, Wobbly, Timey, Wimey store. Hello, Chris.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Not bad there, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm co-owner of Wibbly Wobbly TimeyWimey.com. There, that's the plug done for the show. I am a computer consultant during the day and a Whovian the rest of the time.
All right there. Now, we have a very special guest who's actually been in New Who, who's been on Harry Potter. I want to welcome for his first time on the show, a very special guest who's been on Doctor Who. You may know him as the Blue Man. I call him the Blue Man Group because he's my favorite Blue Man on the show, but ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Mr. Simon Fisher-Becker. How you doing, Simon? Welcome to the show.
Well, what an extensive introduction. Well, hello. Thank you very much. And I'm very excited to be on the show, and particularly as we're talking about Tom Baker. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I shall shut up now until I can be asked a question.
Oh, well, no, I want everybody to talk. That's why we've got everybody over here. But because of that, I'm glad that actually you did cut off, because we are now going to go with Sage with the Who Knew News with Sage. Sage, before I embarrass myself any further, play the music. Go.
Okay, and as we have talked about, first up in my news is today, on the airing of the show, it is Tom Baker's birthday. Our fourth Doctor, who did his 7-year stint, will be 85 today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tom. So if you're hearing this on the premiere date, yes, happy birthday, Tom Baker. 85?
Yes.
I love it. I want him around for another 85 years if we can help that.
Absolutely. We all know him best, obviously, as the fourth Doctor. But he was also Sherlock Holmes once in the miniseries, The Hounds of the Baskerville.
Hounds
Did
of
you
Baskerville,
know that?
Yeah.
So.
I think it's one of those shows you actually extremely like or extremely hate. I don't know of anybody who's on the middleman side of things as far as that episode's concerned. But it's basically Tom Baker as Doctor Who in Sherlock Holmes' form. I think that's why everybody wanted to watch that. So
it's fantastic. Yes, and he did not, he studied to be a Roman Catholic monk, and I think that we're all glad that he was instead our doctor.
And he was actually, I believe, a construction worker right before Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
And he just auditioned for the role, and he got the role, and he was just shocked that he even got the role. So, yeah, and then a legend was created. What else we got in the news, Sage?
Well, speaking of construction, the Bleeding Cool did an article, and it was the best title, which was "Are We Giving the Daleks Self-Esteem Issues?" which I thought was just really funny. And it was all because, in Resolution, the Dalek had to, build its own casing from scrap, and then they just talked about the different color changes over the years. But this one-off,
therapy.
This one was actually completely remote controlled for Resolution.
I kind of, looking back at a Resolution now, what did you guys think of DIY Dalek? I loved it, especially when his Rundles, I think those are what called, the balls of the Dalek, go inside to show off the missiles. I'm like, oh my god, this thing is more badass than I could even possibly imagine.
There were certain parts where I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's going to build itself using her as the vessel, and it was able to build another Dalek, and then it had jet propulsion, and it had missiles, and I was just kind of like, suspend disbelief as fast as I can and enjoy this ride.
Well, all you have to do nowadays is everything's DIY. You can go build your own sonic screwdriver in a warehouse, and now you can build your own Dalek in a warehouse.
Yeah, very true.
All right,
the funniest thing is, recently I just saw a video where somebody set the sequence where the Dalek's building its shell to the A-Team theme.
Yeah.
Only on YouTube.
So, well,
what else we got?
Speaking of Daleks, all right, the soundtrack to the Daleks Master Plan, which was first seen in 1965, is actually going to be released on vinyl for the very first time. It's releasing February 15th this year by the Demon Music Group, but it's a whole series of vinyl records for those of us who still have a player to play them on.
That's rather exciting. I rather like that idea.
I thought so, too.
Does anybody have a vinyl player? Because I remember I'm trying to get rid of all mine, and all of a sudden vinyl is making an extreme comeback that I've never even saw. There's actually a vinyl record.
My vinyl. I got rid of all my vinyl 10 years ago, and now I feel stupid. So, yeah.
Well,
the scary part is, I was recently at my local Walmart, and they actually have a vinyl section there, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me! I feel like I'm old. It's like, wow.
See, everything comes back around, and coincidentally, earlier this week on the 15th of January was when the Daleks Master Plan actually premiered on BBC.
I'm just waiting for the Commodore 64 and the Atari game system to make a comeback, and then it's all... Actually, Atari did make a comeback, because now you only have to buy that...
Yeah, I've even heard that there's a possibility of a... Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say they have come up with a Commodore 64 emulator that's shaped like the old Commodore 64, and everything's back.
Right, yeah,
yeah, that's what I saw, too. I saw that, Commodore 64 thing recently, and I'm like, oh, God, now I feel really old. That was my first computer.
I just remember you had to get the game systems. You had to buy all the games and stuff like that. What was it, like $30 a cartridge or something like that for Atari? Now you just buy the joystick, and all the games are inside the joystick. And you just shove it against you just plug it into your TV, and you're playing whatever game that you want. I'm like, my goodness, if times have changed. But everything old is new again. So... including
I was always a ColecoVision guy, but that's
My parents bought a knockoff. It was called Fairchild. It was the joystick and everything about it was just bonkers and borked. So anyway, you had to twist the top or something like it. It was just really weird. Anyway, Sage, I'm just rambling. Go for it. What's on the next?
We are going to actually go into our topic since you mentioned that everything comes back around again, and don't forget that Tom Baker is doing his project and bringing Scratchman back to life after nearly 40 years. And with that, I'm going to let you go into your show with Tom Baker.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let me ask that question real fast because we reported the news on that. Anybody, what's your take on Scratchman coming back in novel? Not coming back, but actually premiering in novel. When I think originally, if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to be a movie with Ian Marter and Vincent Price as the bad guy. This is what they were looking into.
I'm actually quite excited about it, and I know Tom's performing the audiobook version of it when it comes out, and I've already put my Amazon credit towards it, so when it comes out, I know what I'm going to be listening to at work.
Okay.
Same here. I've already pre-ordered it on Amazon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving it a listen to see, what their take would have been, for that, production had it gone off.
Gosh, I just wish that movie had premiered. I think I would have paid buku bucks to see Vincent Price and Tom Baker go at it. I love now the Big Finish audios. My biggest kick right now is listening to, I think the Sands of Time. I think it's called the Sands of Time with David Warner and Tom Baker going at it. It's beautiful. Just to hear those two go off of each other when you have iconic people like that. It's amazing when they get onto that. And Vincent Price and Tom Baker would have been so wonderful to watch out there. Oh, alrighty. Well, Simon and Chris, you may be new to this, but what we do is we do a rating at the start of every show. Sage, I haven't told the rating. I'm gonna tell it at the end of my rating at the end of the show, but. The question now is, what do you think of Tom Baker and his doctor? 1 being completely awful, 10 being the most awesome thing in the world. I'm going to start off with our guests who are just joining us. Chris Daly, what do you think, giving 1 to 10 for Tom? And just give us a number for right now. We'll go into the details when we get back from the break. Chris? Oh, I think he's asleep at the wheel.
Sorry,
right
there you are.
There you go. Yeah, you got to unmute the mic, man.
Why, I sound better on mute. Anyway, at least according to my wife. But
I didn't say it.
How's 9.9 sound?
9.9 sound. Simon, I think I should know your answer by then, but go ahead. Give me a scale 1 to 10. What do you think of Tom as the doctor?
Well, earlier we heard him saying, you may be a doctor, but I'm the doctor.
Yes.
Which I have to agree, and so it's 10.
Melanie?
It's a 10. I would give him 10 out of 10, honestly. Oh, to me, I won't go any further. 10 out of 10.
And Brian?
Well, for all teeth and curls, it can't be anything less than a 10.
There we go there. Alrighty. Well, we've given our numbers out there, and we're going to pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about the legend of Tom Baker himself as the 4th Doctor when we return. So stay tuned, whether you're listening on iHeart, iTunes, Krypton Radio, Spotify, or whatever listening device or social media you're listening on. Keep in touch and continue to become part of the legend. We'll be right back.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics. Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Secrets in Italy? Oh yes. Her beauty strikes him like a thunderbolt sent by the goddess Venus. When Fiore is given a peculiar gift, a Spanish doll, she is thrown into a whirlwind of entangled passion, money, secrets, and love. Get swept away today by Hangin with Web Show featured author Joanne Fisher's The Spanish Doll. Available now on Amazon.com.
Hello, sweeties. I'm Crystal Moore. I play the Doctor in fan series Doctor Who Velocity. You're listening to The Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show.
Quite some time ago, there was a kid somewhere in Central Florida who was sitting down watching his PBS shows. And while he was growing up, he was watching things like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Electric Company and Contact and all those shows. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of everything, he saw one show that would be slightly different from the rest, because his parents would let him stay up and watch things like Monty Python and Dave Allen and Benny Hills. And remember, I'm a young kid watching all of this and just getting excited. And I thought, this is actually cool TV. I actually thought PBS was better than what was actually out on the other networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC at the time, when you had 4 channels and that knob thing. And this kid stayed up on a Saturday and watched this first episode called Robot. And he noticed a character on that. A very interesting character. He called himself the Doctor. He roamed around. He wore a scarf and a floppy hat, and he had really weird hair and just this nice, really grimacing but evil, somewhat smile that he would watch. And as he was watching episodes after episodes after episodes, gain an attraction to the character, and later on would just continue to watch over and over and over again. And interesting enough, this kid would grow up in a school where things like DC and Marvel and G.I. Joe and Transformers were the big it thing at the time out there. And this kid had Doctor Who as his geekdom. And this is way before conventions, and really I think even the term geekdom even got out there. And I mean, back then, and bullying was just a little bit of a different concept. But there was no cyberbullying, anything. You just got bullied. And I remember the kid dressed up one day for Halloween as Doctor Who. And a couple of the kids knew of what the kid was, but I meant they would just taunt him. And he wouldn't wear the outfit again. He found this robe, and he found this scarf and a hat he stole from the theater department, which he's not going to give back because he kind of lost and he feels sorry for it. So sorry about that, guys. But later on, he would keep Doctor Who in his heart and watch it and continue to watch it and grow up with it. And later on, he would start his own radio show. And that's how powerful a thing like Doctor Who's become in my life. This is what began everything for me up until everything that I believe in now about the one greatest sci-fi show that I've ever seen on TV. And it was all started by a man who just was a character actor in himself. And he hardly picked up a gun. He was always one step ahead of the bad guys. And I believed in a character that didn't have brute strength or used violence against other characters, other people. He actually was intelligent enough to take down the people with his wit, his humor, and his compassion. And this is where everything began for me. This is where the legend of the Traveling Tardis story truly begins with me. So for everybody who's ever watched Tom Baker, I want to hear your first take of Tom and how he affected you. And I want to start with you, Simon. When was the first time you got attracted to watching Tom Baker as the Doctor, and why do you still watch it to this day?
Well, I watched Doctor Who from William Hartnell. I was 2 when it all started, so I was just old enough to see William Hartnell change to Patrick Troughton, who I adored. And then came along John Pertwee, who was quite extraordinary but very different from Patrick Troughton. And then there was this very odd personality in Tom Baker, and I was just fascinated. I was already very attracted to Doctor Who anyway, and I'd got used to the concept of regeneration. So for me, having a new Doctor was more, let's see what develops. And the first episode, I will admit, was very weird. So I would have been around 12 or 13 when Tom materialized. So I was of the age that I'd already got sucked into sci-fi. I'd already got enthralled by Doctor Who. So what is Tom Baker going to produce? And I, unlike some others, I actually did know who Tom Baker was before. At the time, nobody really knew who he was, but I knew him because I saw him in theatre. And he was a very mesmerising actor on stage.
Where did you see him at? Which play
I saw him at the National Theatre. I can't possibly tell you what I saw him doing. But I can't remember the character. But and he wasn't a lead, but he was. Whenever he was on stage, he was present. And then, of course, there was the film Rasputin.
Yes.
Yeah, and it absolutely extraordinary performance and characterization of Rasputin, which in some ways was not dissimilar to his Doctor.
I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
He has a persona that he carries with him. He's a character actor in my mind, and everything I've seen, I remember seeing bits of the Mutations.
Yeah.
I remember that movie, and I remember a movie. Oh God, and God forget. I think it's Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Dark Side or something like that.
Yes.
He's an artist.
Yes. And
he's doing a painting, but everything about him was still Doctor Who. It was still Tom Baker. I think the more Doctor Who is Tom Baker.
Yeah,
that was the fault of horror.
Yeah, so when he first came on the scene, I won't say he grabbed me at his first episode, but it didn't take too long for me to settle down and say, all right, what's he up to next?
And I think that's what the beauty of it with Doctor Who, for at least me, because growing up with American TV versus what Doctor Who was showing, we knew that the budget wasn't there. We knew everything, wasn't up to speed. It was what the BBC had at the time. But I looked over that because of Tom. I didn't, I just wanted Tom to take on the bad guys. I wanted to see what he was going to say next. I think that is probably the most attractive thing about Tom, because you just want to know what he's going to do or say next.
And today I'm actually fascinated at listening to his interviews.
Yes.
We over here in the UK we have a thing called In the Psychiatrist's Chair. Or there was a version of that was on the television. I think it was called In Confidence, and the interviewer is a sort of psychologist, and they try to dig into the mind of the people that they're interviewing. And of course, Tom Baker is 7 moves ahead of the psychiatrist.
Right. Yeah.
So they never quite get what they're trying to get from him. But it's fascinating to listen to him. I remember in one interview, the first question asked, it was rather condescending, really. It was said, now tell me, Tom, you go to these little things called conventions. What exactly is it you do there? And he said, I have nothing at all, dear boy. I just sit on the chair and they all sit at my feet and listen to my every word. And of course, I thought that was absolutely classic of Tom, and thoroughly enjoyable. A chap that, like I think most of the Doctors, actually, most of the actors who played the Doctor do have a streak of intelligence behind their eyes. And he definitely is well read as well as steel of mind. So beware any battle you might try and have with him. But on the other side, he can be. You hear some stories professionally where he can probably be a bit awkward, but I've never found it. I've bumped into him 2 or 3 times, and he's always been utterly delightful, if a little strange.
I would just love to meet the man, one day, and I think I don't think the winds are going to sail that way one day, but I will still admire the man who is just wonderful, to watch, and just you hear those stories about Melanie. You hear stories about people who read the phone book. People will sit there and watch, and Tom Baker could read the phone book inside and out, and I would do it. Melanie, you grew up PBS like me, right?
I did. A lot of your story of that kid in Central Florida mimicked a kid over here on the Tampa Bay area. I grew.
How did Tom get to you?
For me, it was because it was the whole PBS thing again, and I believe they did reruns at that time. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely in the 80s. But that was just solely because my father had, rolled the roost and he had the remote. So he was the one that was watching everything on PBS. So and at least for me, as a kid, he'd turn out early in the morning. We'd watch Danger Mouse. We'd watch all sorts of, interesting stuff on PBS. But then Doctor Who was happening too. And we would watch. So I know growing up, I never remembered my memory. I couldn't remember the episodes per se, but I remember different images and stuff. But I always knew that voice. I knew the voice, and I remembered the colorful scarf. So I was but a wee Mel at the time, and I remember growing up with watching Doctor Who, and that he was Doctor Who, and at some point he wasn't Doctor Who, and it was kind of confusing. He was wearing, and it was kind of and my dad was just done. So when I don't know how he was able to find other Peter Davison episodes. I don't know if it was circulating the tapes back then with the VHS tapes of what you did or how, but I know my dad tried giving Davison a chance, but he just didn't like him. And as sometimes a child is wont to do, they emulate their parents, and I didn't like him. So we never really watched Who from there. It was just always kind of watching, reruns and watching. I want to watch my Doctor. And then, that's why Tom was mine. And I'd also watched other things like, he was in Sinbad. He was Cora, because I remembered the voice.
The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Yeah.
Yes, that. And I remember hearing that voice and going, wait, who? Wait, I know who this is.
You get those late night showings on cable channels like Cinemax and HBO, and all of a sudden they play a movie and just like, I recognize that voice. What?
Exactly.
I recognize that voice. So what? I'm like, who is that? And it's like,
it's always been that voice for me. Funny enough, like when what was it? The other day, I'll say maybe a couple weeks ago, there's the times where I'll put on Amazon Prime or anything when I'm working around the house or painting, and I just have it on the background, just listening to something, and I'm listening to animal shows and just let it play, and all of a sudden I hear the voice. Yeah, and it was a show about Amazon. It was called Amazon Claws, and it was Tom narrating about all different types of clawed animals in the Amazon rainforest, and I was just enamored. I'm like, oh, just tell me everything about the sloths, Tom. This is awesome. It put me in my happy place. But it's always that voice. And even he was just recently in Star Wars, where he was the Bendu. So I was watching Star Wars Rebels for a while, and again, the voice. I'm like, okay, I know who that is. So it's always that voice.
And Brian, that is not a voice you can forget there. But I can relate to Melanie, because when Peter Davison took over Tom Baker, the first thing I asked was that moment where Rose looks at David Tennant for the first time, goes, "Can you change back?" I was just like, "Can you go back to being my old Doctor?" And the first time I saw Tom outside his role was in an episode of Remington Steele, which really freaked me out. He was the bad guy against Pierce Brosnan. So what do you think about that, brother? And how and give us your take on how you got attracted to Tom.
Well, I got to make this really quick. It was 1983, and I was a fan of Star Trek. And what happened? I grew up with Star Trek, Star Wars, and all that. And then what happened was the local baseball game was going to be on that night, and which means no Star Trek on my regular channel. So I'd pick up TV Guide and start looking. Doctor Who, science fiction, fantasy. Okay, I can look at this. So I flip it over to the PBS channel. And from then on, I was just hooked. It was like the first episode, I'll never forget, Sontaran Experiment. And that's when I fell in love with a lovely young woman named Elizabeth Sladen, who I came to know as Sarah Jane Smith. Yeah. And from then on, I was just captivated. He's such an incredible, he has such gravitas, such charisma. Whenever you hear that voice anywhere, you just know, okay, that's Tom Baker. It's so distinguished. It's so distinctive.
Gotcha there. Chris, we're going to get to you in a second because I wanted to get your take on things, but we do have to pay some bills again. When we return, more about the 85th birthday of one of our favorite doctors, Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor. When we return to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show, continue to listen and become part of the legend.
From some of today's best-selling, award-winning authors comes 22 page-turning tales, Cursed Lands.
Cursed Lands will lead you through one doomed world after another in a haunting dystopian urban fantasy.
Join the courageous as they battle for survival across worlds where fae, vampires, angels, witches, and more roam freely.
Cursed Lands is coming soon on Apple Books, Kobo, and Nook.
Pre-order your copy for just 99 cents today.
Now on Amazon.com. War Calls, Love Cries, a Civil War novel by Mark Berry. Isaac Wells is an innocent farm boy living in upstate New York. His dreams are shattered by a treacherous brother and the onset of a devastating civil war. War Calls and Love Cries is a fast-moving historical narrative. It is an emotional roller coaster ride and a riveting must-read book that you will think about and talk about for a long time to come. War Calls, Love Cries is the kind of book you will cherish for a lifetime. On Amazon.com today.
Every year, tens of millions of people flock to Florida for its sunny beaches and world-famous tourist attractions. Most never learn about the strange and unusual locations just off the beaten path. From the UFOs of Gulf Breeze to Robert the Haunted Doll in Key West, learn about the myths, monsters, and legends from the dark side of the Sunshine State with author Mark Muncy and illustrator Carrie Schultz in their books Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida from the History Press. Find them at eerieflorida.com or wherever books are sold.
And we're back with the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show. I have all my guests today. I have Simon Fisher-Becker. I have Chris Daly from Wibbly Wobbly, Timey, Wimey store. I have artist Melanie Dean, and I have Dr. Freedom himself, Briar Burress. Chris, we were getting to you when we were talking about how we fell in love with Tom Baker. What was the thing that brought you into Doctor Who with Tom?
Well, this story starts with a very clumsy 8-year-old kid who was climbing
they all do.
on a ledge in wintertime and fell off and broke a leg.
Aww.
And his parents put him on the sofa and turned on the CBC. I grew up in Canada. And on the CBC was Doctor Who, Tom Baker. And I remember my first thoughts are, what the heck is this? I can't tell you what the episode was, but I can tell you that about 10 minutes into it, I've been hooked since, and I've never stopped watching. But everyone likes to bring up, where they've heard Tom in other places, and everyone forgot to mention my favorite, Captain Rum, Blackadder.
Oh my goodness, I forgot him in Blackadder. Wow. I forgot what he kept on saying. I wager those be a woman's hands.
Yeah.
Or things like that. Really taking on to Rowan Atkinson. It's just like, oh my God, those two are just so wonderful to watch together. It is so funny and oh God, I don't. I do have a question for you, and I'll go ahead and say it out there. I give Tom a 10 too, and I've got my reasons why. I'll bring those over after the next break. 9.9, Chris. What's with the 0.1?
The 0.1 was for the 5 doctors and not being in it. And
okay. But didn't he redeem himself? But didn't he redeem himself back in when he came back on the 50th anniversary?
Let me tell you a little story about the 50th anniversary.
Gotcha.
I was in Pittsburgh, and I was working there, and I went with a few friends I had made to the 50th anniversary in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And the place was packed, and we were watching it, and we're all coming up to the end, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I remember looking at the walls thinking, those round things look kind of familiar, but the whole place is quiet watching it, and then suddenly, his voice just booms,
Mm-hmm.
You very well might be, and the whole place just erupted. I can tell you, I saw grown men crying because Tom was back. The 4th Doctor was back. It was just such an emotional thing.
Sir, how many of you got chills when Tom came back? When you heard that voice for the very first time, you might be right, or whatever he says at that moment.
Yeah, people were freaking out.
I have to agree. It was a very emotional time, and I too was in a theatre, and as soon as his voice came, the whole cinema erupted.
Yeah.
And we never got to hear what he actually said. I had to go back home and watch the recording. Yes, it was spine tingling. And
it was. And like I said, I saw. Yeah. Sorry, Simon. Like I was saying, I saw grown men crying.
Yep.
That their doctor from their childhood was back.
Mm.
Even if he wasn't officially, quote unquote, playing the doctor, he was the doctor. And I mean, just people were crying. They were cheering. And like Simon, I didn't actually hear most of it. But yeah, it was just such an emotional moment in the 50th anniversary.
Yes. I really think you might. Yes.
Yeah. When I first heard that.
Cheating with Google.
Well, yeah, mine's been fried all day. Sorry about that, but he's the kind of person I just wanted to see, one day at one point, and I just want to go over there and shake my hand. And I said, you know what, you really were the person who changed my life, and made me love this wonderful TV show at first. And like I said, I think I speak for everybody, Brian, when Peter Davison came on the scene, like Melanie said, what was your first reaction when he was gone, when you knew for the moment that he's not going to be the doctor anymore, and he did it for so long?
Well, the thing was, I had missed out on a few episodes here and there, so I didn't know about the whole regeneration thing at first.
Mm-hmm.
So when he fell off the tower, and then it's like, wait, they just killed the doctor. Then all of a sudden, who's this blonde guy? Wait a minute! I freaked out. I completely lost it.
Yeah.
Melanie, what happened is, and I tell this story practically to all the conventions over there, as much as Brian has said, what happened is that I saw Tom Baker from Robot all the way to Logopolis. He falls off the tower, turns blonde, and for the longest time, I was mortified because he turned blonde, and then all of a sudden Robot showed up back over, and we watched the whole series over and over again. And he turns blonde, and I thought that was the end of Doctor Who. I'm like, that's cool. Why did that happen? And can you bring him back? And and I was just, and when they started playing Castrovalva, that was the first thing on my mind: is Tom coming back? Is he going to make an appearance? What the hell is this all about? Not only that, but the pledge drive finally said, "Oh yes, and we now procured the funds to play the first 3 Doctors." And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, there's 3 guys before him?
Yeah.
And we're going to have a special called The 5 Doctors. I'm like, 5? Wait a minute here.
And it's before the internet, so if you go down to the reference section at your Pinellas Park Public Library, like I did, it didn't tell you what the heck was going on. I just was confused. I went, okay.
And something I could tell you, probably being the oldest one amongst you, is there has always been a hoo-ha when there is a regeneration. First of all, when Patrick Troughton took over, the idea that another actor would take over the lead in any show on television was hardly ever done. In fact, I think Patrick, if anything, was the second person to do it. So we got to give a nod to Patrick Troughton, because had he not succeeded, we wouldn't be having this show today. And then when Patrick Troughton moved on to John Pertwee, Pertwee at the time was known as a comedy voice actor for doing comedy shows on the radio. And so the idea he was going to be the Doctor, that caused a hoo-ha. And then he produced something which nobody would recognise as John Pertwee. And I think what the media forget is actors are exactly that. They're actors that can perform any role given the chance. And so when there was the recent hoo-ha about Jodie Whittaker taking over, I just sat back and just quite enjoyed the nonsense, really. Because when Jodie ends her tenure, the next one, there'll be a hoo-ha as well. So it's all part of it. But which is very funny when you think the best thing about Doctor Who is the regenerations and it's rebooted. Anyway, that's my lecture of the day. Over.
No, that's that's. I think that's every. Somebody had made a picture of what they call the regeneration cycle, where it's, I will miss them. I hate the new person. I despise them. I'm kind of liking them. I love them. You did it again.
Yeah.
But it's always. I always call it the Game of Thrones syndrome, which means don't love a character long enough because they're not going to be around long enough for as long as you were hoping they would be.
When Tom came by, there was this. Well, who is he? Who is this man? You know, nobody knows why. Is the BBC taking a risk? So there you go. And then, of course, Tom ended up being the longest tenure.
Yeah.
And the
I
most.
got to admit
noted.
that. Sorry.
No, sorry.
I was going to say, I must admit that when Peter first popped on the screen, I was like, okay, I'm not watching this, and turned it off. Walked around the house. It's like, crap. I have to see what he's doing.
Exactly, and that's what Doctor Who has done for you. You might not agree initially, or you might be. It's more just being in shock that you think you don't like it. But once you give it a go,
well, I got to admit, by the end of Castrovel, I was like, okay, I'm giving him a shot. I kind of like him. I kind of like his character.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We all have a knee-jerk reaction about something, which ultimately turns around. Yeah.
Well, Captain Kirk said it best. People can be very frightened of change, and especially something that has been long and loved as Tom's tenure as the Doctor. That was a hard act. I know a lot of people, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, they basically thought that was the end of the show as soon as he fell off the tower.
Yeah. But as for being a frightened of change, that's a whole new topic. It'll take at least 3 shows to cover. But, but there we go.
Whereas Patrick Troughton was the man who made sure that Doctor Who would keep running, I think Tom...
Absolutely. We all have to give Patrick Troughton an orange at Christmas.
I got to agree, Patrick does not get the recognition he deserves for keeping the show alive and going, and keeping it in people's living rooms.
Yes. But he was a wonderful Doctor, Patrick Troughton, as well. Absolutely. Well, anyway, I mustn't take control.
No. Well, this is Tom's show. We'll stick it on the Tom show.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday there, Tom. It's just when you love something so much and something changes like the way it did for Tom Baker and trying to get a new... I mean, I can understand, especially kids today, now that they're growing up, because they think Christopher Eccleston is the first Doctor. So when I hear somebody come out and go, you know what, Matt Smith, he's my favorite third Doctor, I don't begrudge them. I know there's a lot of classic people who come up and just facepalm that, and I just I'd rather want you to understand what's going on and let me tell you about the history that you don't know as of yet. And it was for me because it was a earth shock, for a better term, that when I found out there was Dr. 5 coming around the corner and there was 3 people before Tom, I didn't know how to react. I was just like, and especially that he wasn't going to be doing the 5 Doctors for whatever reason he chose not to. But I'm very happy that he is a part of it. And again, like you said, Troughton was the man to make sure that Doctor Who kept running. I think Tom Baker is the man who made it known to people that there was a show. He put it on the map.
Yeah.
Well, Tom was the one who really brought it mainstream.
Yes.
Up to that point, it was this geeky sci-fi show, you know.
Well,
if you kind of like Star Trek, you kind of like this, but Tom made it, you know, acceptable.
Yeah, and plus when Tom was, that's when there was more international interest. I mean, everybody says that Tom was the first one in the US, but talking to some of my friends in America, some of them say they got John Pertwee before Tom. So I don't know what the true answer is on that, but definitely Tom is the one everybody knows.
It depended upon how rich the PBS station was and how much they had in their budget. Speaking of rich and how much we have in the budget, we need to pay some bills again. Ladies and gentlemen, we return back to Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. We're going to continue our discussion for the 85th birthday of Tom Baker and our tribute to him. When we return, stay with the legend and keep on being part of the legend.
Murder by the Gods from author William G. Collins is available today. Murder by the Gods is a mystery thriller set in the glorious past of ancient Egypt, when the son of the Scorpion King suddenly collapses after receiving a mysterious threat from the god Seth. The prince is convinced it is the gods who are trying to kill his family. Murder by the Gods is filled with adventure and romance in a kingdom that would become known as the Land of the Pharaohs. Murder by the Gods from author William G. Collins is available on Amazon.com today.
The Right of Wands. One boy, one right. And a world of deadly secrets that could change the course of history forever. It's time for The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Floor. When a horrible fate reveals itself during the Right of Wands ceremony, Myrda must find a way to change his destiny. Forbidden from revealing the future, he is granted a wand and magical powers in order to save himself and those he loves. But Myrda is not the only one with secrets. The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Floor, available on Amazon.com now.
What are you waiting for?
Just touch these two strands together, and the Daleks are finished. Have I that right?
To destroy the Daleks, you can't doubt it.
But I do. You see, some things could be better with the Daleks. Many future worlds will become allies just because of their fear of the Daleks.
It isn't like that.
But the final responsibility is mine. Mine alone. Listen. If someone who knew the future pointed out a child to you and told you that that child would grow up totally evil, to be a ruthless dictator who would destroy millions of lives, could you then kill that child?
We're talking about the Daleks, the most evil creatures ever invented. You must destroy them. You must complete your mission for the Time Lords.
Do I have the right? Simply touch one wire against the other, and that's it. The Daleks cease to exist. Hundreds of millions of people, thousands of generations can live without fear, in peace, and never even know the word Dalek.
Then why wait? If it was a disease or some sort of bacteria you were destroying, you wouldn't hesitate.
But if I kill, wipe out a whole intelligent life form, then I become like them. I'd be no better than the Daleks.
Think of all the suffering there'll be if you don't do it.
Doctor! Doctor, I've been looking everywhere for you. Davros has agreed to our terms.
He submitted?
He did, but he asked only one thing, that he might be allowed to address a meeting of all the elite, scientific and military.
He's going to put a case?
Yes, but a vote will be taken. It's a foregone conclusion. It'll be a complete landslide against any further development of the Daleks. We won.
I'm grateful to you, Garman. More grateful than I can tell you.
The meeting's about to begin. Will you come?
Yes.
That's from one of my favorite stories of all time of Tom Baker's. I think that was Genesis of the Daleks, if I'm not mistaken, there. And that's the first introduction of Davros. And not only that, but that's one of my greatest moments of Tom as the role of the Doctor, the touch two strands, and the Daleks are finished. And the first time in his whole existence, he's about to commit genocide, and he thinks about it. He doesn't do it. He just goes, do I have a right to do this? Not only did I see the compassion and the power of the space god inside Tom Baker in all that acting that he was showing and demonstrating and putting out over there, but I got to see the heart of the Doctor, where it's not just that easy where I'm just going around the universe saving lives and all that, especially when he's told by the Time Lords to go and you have the right to kill the Daleks, the most evil race in the cosmos. And he hesitates. and you can feel the Doctor doubting what he's doing, and is this right? And I think that's one of the most powerful scenes from that episode. Not only that, but I meant the face-off between Davros and the Doctor. They're not holding guns out and shooting each other. They're geeking out. They're geeking out about their sciences, and they're geeking out about their beliefs, and they're just talking. That's all there is talking. And I think it's one of the most brilliantly played out scenes that I have ever seen in the entire series, where just the two of them are just talking. And it was just tremendously wonderful. If you ever get the chance to watch that episode, it is just so brilliantly done. Tom really puts it out there, but he knows when to draw back the humor and get to the heart of the show, which was that scene where he's holding the two wires together. Is this the right thing to do? Brian, what is your favorite Tom Baker moment from the series?
Well, believe it or not, a lot of people wouldn't, think of this one, but it was a speech that he gave in the Pirate Planet when he confronted the captain, and he asked him, goes into it about how this is just nothing more than a glorified toy. What's it for? What are you doing? And he just showed such passion in that speech. It just
is that the appreciated speech, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it was when he was going off on the captain about this, this pirate planet he created and all that. And it's just, oh man, it just had me riveted.
Oh my goodness! I mean, now I need to go start watching DVDs again with Tom Baker out there. Chris, your favorite Tom Baker moment? What hit you the most?
The genesis of the Daleks was right up there, but I kind of also really liked the Warrior's Gate.
You did?
At the end. Yes, I did. I'm one of the odd people who liked it.
Oh, that's fine. It's not one of my favorites, but I did miss Romana. And I think he said the right thing at the very end, if I remember correctly. The only way that the Fourth Doctor could have ended the relationship with Romana to say goodbye.
Yeah, but just something you said a minute ago. Tom knew when to dial back the humor. You could just watch him, and 1 minute he's as flippant as possible, and the next minute he is this 500-year-old dead serious alien that is cut right to the bone of the marrow of the problem. Mm. And just the way he could flip on a dime was amazing.
Melanie, what was your favorite moment from Tom?
I'm trying to think of one that's not the clip that you just literally played. I'm trying to grasp. There was a speech he had in Pyramids of Mars, against the big bad. That one was it. Sutek. Yeah, him. There was a lot of. I remember there was a lot of scenes between the two of them, and that how. It was just such a wordy script between the two of them, because that was another one where even before he was starting to get his powers back, they were just kind of going back and forth, and everything was just so effortless, and it was just speaking. I'm just trying to remember different. There was just a lot of different scenes in there that I'm trying to I can't pick one right off the top of my head now because I'm like ah. But I'm just a point at that episode, that was to me, a quintessential Fourth Doctor, just a really good episode where Tom just ran the entire acting gamut on that one.
You can have
one of my scenes. Sorry, I was going to say in Pyramids of Mars, the scene where he takes Sarah Jane back to the future, and the planet's destroyed. Just it was such a smack in the head. Mm-hmm. And you could see the compassion and the love of humanity in his eyes.
But then again, you have a GIF on the internet with the two of them, with Sarah and Tom walking into the room, and there's one of the creatures, and they turn right around, and blinking is nope.
Yep.
So, you could have that beautiful balance in Doctor Who, where it's just silly. You're either crying because you are happy and laughing at what's going on, or you're crying because you're sad and upset of what's happened.
Yeah, because I remember there was a scene where it's the Doctor, Sarah, and it's somebody else. They were hiding, in a closet, and they were like, you could see that the other guy in the closet wanted to go and help somebody, and they were just like, shh, no, you know. But you knew they didn't. You know that it's the doctor. The doctor wants to go out there and do whatever it's possible to, stop what was going on, all that kind of fun stuff. But it was just restraint. The doctor actually was showing restraint in that scene.
Gotcha. Simon, what's your favorite Tom Baker moment? I gave you some time to think about it there.
Well, there's so many. I think the main thing, and it's been mentioned before, it's his sheer performance. Not only were the stories well written, but he delivered the dialogue brilliantly and got the confusion to use the parlance before, in this alien's mind. Mm-hmm. He's clearly got a focus on what he really wants to do, but then he has the conflict where sometimes the right thing to do is the bad thing, and that is a real clash of conscience. And Tom Baker just put that over all the time, rather cleverly, coming over as being a bit strange. Mm-hmm. But other times he gave brilliant speeches with absolute power, and you were transfixed for 5 minutes after the broadcast to let you absorb everything. And that's, I think, especially I was in my early to mid-teens when Tom Baker, I suppose late teens really, because he was on for so long, but he was in my teenage years, which were, and it was one of the programs that influenced me highly, and it's because of Doctor Who and his performance in particular. Well, that sounded very, very boring, didn't it? But
no, it didn't. No, it's fine. There is no kind of one moment. Almost every episode has 10 moments where Tom shines. Even in the not so great episodes, there are moments when he still pulls it off and shines over what's going on out there. But Brian, there's two episodes that really kind of, I've been thinking about this, going over stuff. One is The Talons of Wang Chiang. Would that episode ever air today if Tom were putting it out today? Would that episode make its way through?
I know, that's what everybody keeps bringing up now. It's like, come on, it was that time, that era, and they had to work with what they had, and now everybody's bringing up, something about, it being racist and all that, about how the Chinese were betrayed and whatnot. And I'm like, it wasn't intended to be insulting, it was, just meant to be entertainment. Right. And it was an incredible, piece. Talons of Wang Chiang, always going to be one of my favorites. But, that is a good question. Would it really sit well today in today's television? Would they let him get away with it? That is good question.
It spun off Big Finish, Jago and Lightfoot. There were so many great... It spun them off, and I think people have been returning to that Victorian time and place like there. But everybody's gone, this is the bad thing. And I'm just like, what do you think, Chris? That was the time. I can't blame what was going on at that time.
No. It was a great episode. The message and meaning in it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. The acting was fantastic. I'm sorry if people are applying today's standards and culture to something that aired 30 years ago, 40 years ago, however long ago it was. Yeah. But, sit back and enjoy it for what it is, and stop, overanalyzing things through today's lens.
You were
talking about Genesis of the Daleks. Really, when you think about it, it was really a disturbing thing that the Time Lords did. They knew the Doctor didn't murder. They knew the Doctor didn't kill, and yet they sent him on this mission to do exactly that. Yeah. And people were surprised that the Doctor stayed true to himself and did not just touch the wires and murder and commit genocide.
Well, I think it's also because the faction that asked him was the CIA, and I have to tell the youngins, about, you know, what happened back then, that the CIA stands for Celestial Intervention Agency and not what you think it is today there. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. This show could go on and on and on and ever. So we got 1 minute left. So in just a few short moments, folks, starting with Melanie, actually, I want you to say happy birthday to Tom, and we'll just do a round robin around the room. If Tom were right in front of you right now, what would you say to him?
Happiest of birthdays. Thank you so much for everything that you've put onto the theater, onto the boards of the theater, and into the celluloid of film, because everything you put out there, I message received and loved everything of it.
Chris, what would you say to Tom if he were right in front of you right now? How would you wish him?
Happy birthday, and thanks for the memories.
You got it there. Brian? Dr. Freedom?
I'd have to say happy birthday, Tom. You changed the course of my life back at a time when I really needed it. And I hope you're with us for many, many more years to come.
I do too. And Simon, wrap it up. How would you wish Tom a happy birthday?
I would just simply say happy birthday, and then I would say to him, but with greater emphasis than I do to the other doctors, thank you for keeping a special show going that now has changed my life.
And this is from me, Tom, if you're actually hearing this from all of us. Happy birthday, happy 85, and I wish you another 85 more. Thank you for everything that you've done. Of course, this podcast wouldn't even be out here without you being an influence in my life. And we hope you continue to listen to our show on iTunes, on iHeart, on Spreaker, on Krypton Radio. Folks, thank you for joining us. As always, we're going to have a podcast out here weekly. Just a reminder, Central Florida Comic-Con this weekend as the show premieres. Check us out. Make sure you get the tickets and check them out at the Legend of the Traveling Tardis Facebook. We have the tickets online, or centralfloridacomicon.com. Folks, thank you for joining us. Simon, Melanie, Brian, and Chris, thank you for all for joining us. Again, happy birthday, Tom. We'll see you. Hopefully, I will see you very shortly and very soon. Until then, goodbye.
Hello. I didn't notice you there. But I'm glad to see you anyway. Listen, I just wanted to say thank you for all your kind wishes for my birthday. How long is it now? 29,000 days now, 4,000 weeks. Time passes so quickly. You know, I was only thinking this morning when I woke up in a great state of excitement because not everybody woke up this morning. And I was thinking it's only 7,000 years ago since we were connected to France, you know. Seems like only yesterday. Anyway, I want to thank you again for all your good wishes. And also to say, I think we should take a little bit of a break from all these autographs and everything during February and March, I think. I think we'll have a little bit of a break, and then I'll tell you when I come back. And Happy New Year to everyone.
Goodbye.